and today I've got fresh coffee and we're going to be battling our existential ennui with putting on pretty makeup. So we have pretty much unnatural lighting today. You can tell by all the lovely shadows that my glasses are casting that we're bright and early and no sunlight. So we're in just room light. I don't use ring lights or anything like that because it's hard enough trying not to get my glasses, blinding people. So we're just doing regular unnatural lighting. Today we're going to play with Dnessa Myricks. Now, let me tell you about my journey with Danessa. So, originally, I had gotten some samples of some of the yummy skin, like the serum and so forth. It had a lot of fragrancing and I just couldn't do it. So I was like, eh. The palettes that were coming out were interesting, kind of reminded me of some of the indie shadows, but at a much higher price point than some of the indie shadows. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna pass on that. So I was just kind of like, hands off with the Dnessa Myricks. And then the first thing that happened is my interest got piqued with the yummy skin blurring balm powder, mostly because it contained upsolite, which is supposed to be oil control because the upsolite itself is doing a lot of absorption, much more than some of the other things like talc or like that. But my skin didn't necessarily respond to it that way. I didn't feel like it really balanced. I have combination skin, lots of texture, lots of redness sometimes too. So it didn't really help with the balancing or the oil control. It didn't seem to make much of a difference. It did good color correction on the red. This is in a shade. It didn't work really as a primer. It will work with medium foundation because what it does is it fills in my pores, but you can see them, like the polka dot sort of things, because it'll smooth them over, but it fills them. So with the colored one, I can't use it like as a primer unless I'm having a fairly good coverage foundation over the top of it. But if I got a translucent, it would work. But I have primers that I like, and because it doesn't really balance the oils. But it was interesting. So it because I was wanting to experiment with upsolite, this was kind of my gateway drug. And I will update you guys on the LH Cosmetics with upsolite, the blurring powder, in a new video coming up pretty soon. But anyway, so that gateway drug. Love the packaging, interesting concept. It really works for a lot of people, but it does not really work for me. But then in Ipsy, I got one of the blush palettes, and this is a stiffer formulation of blush, creamy, a little stiffer, more body to it. I don't love because it leaves your cheeks, with that sort of moisturized, dewy, but it's a little too much. It's a little too tacky for me, but I loved the colors. So I kept it around and I'm like, okay, something's brewing. I'm liking this. So then we come to the blushes, which I like the color. It's super pigmented. You have to learn to play with it and where to apply it if you have lighter skin and how to apply it. For me, it wasn't just a plug and play. I had to work with it and learn about it, but I liked the formulation. It's long wearing, highly pigmented, but I did need to play with it. And then something strange happened. I had started looking at some of the other formulations that I thought were interesting, and I picked up one of the Vision Flush Glows that's like a highlightery element. And it really was interesting because it has a little bit of the sparkle to it if you're in intimate distance. When you get farther back, you can't really see as much of the sparkling, but it left my skin feeling soft and like I had skincare on, but it wasn't overly tacky or sticky or like if you mash your hair into it, yeah, it's gonna stick. But so does my eye cream, so it was actually pretty light, felt very skin caring. And so I'm like, okay, we're gonna fall down this rabbit hole. So I picked up another one, and then I saw Teresa is Dead using the deeper color of that Legendary as a bronzery contour. And so I'm like, okay, I'm all in. So I fell in and got 2 other formulations of things. So we're just going to be trying them today, and we're going to be using my hand as a palette for a lot of this, because most all of these are cream or liquid. So it's going to be an interesting day. So we're going to start out with that Legendary. And these guys have the doe foot applicator. And this one, when I practiced with this before just to see how it was. And when it gets on, it's a little bit cooler. So on me, it looks more like a contour. But anyway, so we're gonna get started playing with stuff. I'm gonna take a drink of coffee, remove my spectacles, but not in that order, and start working. Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna dab my brush in this on my hand, and we're gonna use this as contour. Now you can just place this on your skin, the Vision Flush Glow, because they sheer out pretty well, and they're just kind of a lighter substance to begin with. Now some of the other things that I'm gonna show you today, you do not dare place them directly on your skin unless you're just wanting to have a huge color read that doesn't move. So it's really, the exciting thing about this is the formulations are interesting. And it kind of gives us more of, when we're seeing the light read off the face, it gives us more of a glowy sort of a finish without being actually dewy or sticky. You know, it just has that nice, more of a skincare feeling. Okay, I feel like we're doing pretty well there. Maybe I'll put just a tad bit more on this side. More on. She said more on. Okay, so there we go with that. And see, you can see just as it's on my hand and it's shearing out, you can see how that goes. Okay, so then the next one we're going to use is one called Crave. And it's the same formulation, the Vision Flush Glow, but it's in a peachy color. So let me, okay, this is it. Yay. Okay, let me put down my mirror and show you. So again, these you can kind of apply directly. The only thing is, if you apply too much, it can get to be very wet. And the packaging is just really cute. You can see the color, but it's shiny, and then you've got your shades on the bottom, but you can actually see through to the color that you're using. So if you have multiples of them, then it's not as bad. Okay, so going back in, this is Crave. So it's gonna be, you could either use this as a highlighter or a blush topper. And in this case, we're just gonna use it kind of as a blush topper, but we're gonna put on our blush, what we're gonna use for a blush, the last thing. So, and there's a reason why, we'll get to it. But anyway, so I'm gonna put this on because these textures are a lot alike. And again, if you just go about it as playing, and you can always take makeup off, take a shower. Okay, so I'm using that more like a blush topper, and we're gonna use the Femme version of this on our lips with some lip color. So, okay, so there we go with Crave. All right, and then, so one of the things about Dnessa Myricks, now this is the Vision Flush, and it's not a glow, it's not like the highlighter thing, but it's a color. And so you can use this as a blush, as lip color, as eye color, the whole makeup artisty thing where you know, like you can just put it on your face wherever you want to, which is nice. It's a way to play with things. Sometimes people don't like that because they want just like, this is my blush, this is my eyeshadow, this is my whatever. And a lot of times the formulations don't really do well you know, if it works for the lips, it's not great for the cheeks. If it works for the eyes, it's not great for the eyes. I did try the highlighter versions on the eyes. They're very sheer, and they're also a little, like, you have to either have very dry eyes or you have to want just a sheer wash of emollients and a little bit of sparkle. So they're not fabulous on the eyes to me. But again, it's all relevant to what you like. Now this one, let me see if I can see what color this is. I can see the lot number, Vision Flush, Sugar Plum. There we go. Now this is the one that I said you just really do not want to put directly on the cheeks. This is, you can put it on the eyes, but this is even more so than the Rare Beauty, the Pinch Cheeks. This is very pigmented, and you don't want to just, even that whole like putting just a little dot on it, this was kind of a little dot and it's going to be a lot. So I'm going to apply this with my fingers and then brush it out. And it might be one too that you would, with this one, you could use a sponge, a damp sponge with. So this way I get a little more accuracy when I'm applying it at first, because I really want to keep things towards the back side of my cheeks with these. So again, I'm gonna come in. And on this side I have the one place where my skin doesn't like to take color. So I just have to work with it. I'm just tapping it in. And if I want a little more color, I can dip back into it. If you have one of the little palettes, you can use that too. I just, you know, I'm gonna have to wash my hands anyway. So like, I'm just like, well, it's right there. Okay. So I feel pretty good about that. Now, the other sort of formulation, so I really like those as formulas. Many of you have probably seen these guys. So I wasn't excited about the, oh, it looks like color paints, it looks like art supplies, you know, like I wasn't really like jonesing for art supplies per se. But I played around with this in store and found a shade that I was interested in and then picked it up. And again, it's one of these things that it's all over face pigment, wherever you'd like to put it on your face. Or your body. I guess you could put it on your body if you wanted. But it also, okay, so this is the applicator. And you're gonna see in a second. So this is what it dispensed. And then this is what we're looking at. It's a really serious color read. So what I wanna do is I'm going to put this on my eyes and then blend. So since I have some on my finger, I'm going to use that, but you could just tap in with a brush. And what I'm trying to do here is do more of a crease color, because the eye pigment that I'm going to use is one of the Twin Flames, the duochrome one. So I'm just trying to set down where I have like a contour color. Now these, you can play around with them just a little bit, but then they set down and they don't budge. They're really long wearing. So if you need something that's really colorful but not long wearing, for me, they don't crease as long as I have blended them out a pretty, you know, like where they're fairly sheer, but they're colorful enough that they can have still that pow of color. But the product itself is fairly thin on the eyes. So that's the key with that. And they have shimmers and mattes in these, but they're not necessarily, again, something that's just, you know, plug and play. You got to experiment with it a little bit. So I kind of look sick not like, ooh, sick baby, but kind of like, yeah, I'm ill, I'm going to, you know, whatever, with just the pink on. But let me go ahead and clean my hand off. And again, you can see, and they do have lots of different colors and different mattes and shimmers for those, but there are things that you'd want to play with, like to give yourself time. You're not just probably going to pick them up and run with them. Although you might if you pick the right colors. But you can get really deep pigments with that. So what I think with that is, because, excuse me, my nose is now itching. Because this is coming from a makeup artist who's used to working on all different skin tones and types, that it really is very well suited for people of very deep skin tones and very light skin tones, but you got to be able to play with them, because they do require a level of understanding of what the products can do and how to best use them. But once you've got that, they're really, like I said, this eye look is going to be in place until I take it off. So let me have more coffee and we'll come back with the last one. Pardon me for the slurping, but it's very nice. Okay, so the next product is the Twin Flames, these little guys, and they're the Duochrome liquid eye products. Again, you can put them on your face wherever you like, but this is a serious, really beautiful duochrome situation, and they're not that expensive technically. So I'm going to apply this one, and what color do I have? I don't know. I will post it in the box below. I think it's True Love, but you know, you're just not recognizing true love. So again, the doe foot, and the first part that I'm going to do, I'm going to smooth out. So I'm making it a thinner coat, and then I'm going to use this as liner also. But because these are duochrome, the one thing you want to play with duochrome is to see how the light that you're going to be in reacts with it, and if sharing it out is the right thing, or if you should just make a thick liner and let the duochrome do its thing that way. So I always think that you should play around with things, especially, you know, don't try this new when you got to go to a wedding or have pictures or something like that. Play with this when you got a lot of time to just enjoy the product and figure out what it's good at. Because I think that's the thing with some of these. They're not good at everything, but they're really good at what they're really good at. And I think that's, if you don't have time to play with things, these are not going to be, for the most part, products you're going to like. I think with the highlighters, you know, as long as you get something that's going to look good with your skin tone, those are just plug and play. But the rest of the products, because of the amount of pigment and because of how they work, you probably want to give yourself time to play with them. And that was with the palettes too. A lot of people were frustrated with some of the shades that required you to use water, like as a liner. And so they end up not loving what they got, and it was really expensive, but mostly because that's not the way that they like to use their makeup or think about their makeup. And I think that's really important. You know, are you the kind of person that wants to play with things and add water and use your hands and use it as a liner and use it as a body spray and, you know, like all those things? Like, if you're not that person, you know, like, you don't want to spend that kind of money for something. And there's lots of other products that are perfectly beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I'm tapping this off, and I'm gonna use it as liner. Yeah, because I think there's so many products now. And there's some of them I can appreciate from an art form perspective, but they're not the sorts of things that I can wear day to day. That's like the Izamaya. the their initial palettes. Not really something that I could really see myself doing. So, and some of the things that are meant to be just washes of color that you really have to work to build, you know, I get that whole, I got no time for that, which I probably could make time, but I don't want to, so there you go. Okay, so I'm using this as a liner. So this is gonna be pretty wild look for my day job, but that's how it goes. Okay, and I'll probably want to just double check in regular lighting. I'm gonna go back in with the brush really quick and just see if we can just smudge out just a little bit of the and they're a little bit movable for a while, but they will just set right down, so they're not going to be going anywhere. So you've got just enough time to play with them for a little bit, and then they're set. And I'm not really, like, I can just barely feel some of the stuff that I just put on. So all of the stuff that I put on before is pretty much dried to the point where it's set, but it's comfortable, but it doesn't feel heavy, which is what I appreciate, because I hate having heavy eyeballs. Well, not my eyeballs, really, eyelids, because my eyelids get heavy enough all sleepy during the day, so I don't need like makeup to weigh them down. So anyway. Okay, so now what we're gonna do, because these things can also be used as lip color, I'm gonna go back in with the Vision Flush with the color, the Sugar Plum. I'm gonna do the Sugar Plum, and then we're gonna do the highlighter over the top of it, the Femme. And we're going to be using finger applications because Pigment. Okay, so anyway, you could just, if you wanted to, if you're the only one using your tube, you could just smear it on and call it a day. But I'm the only one using these, but because it is so pigmented, I'm just gonna be tapping for my first little bit here. So it's very slick and smooth. And it's going to dry down where it's a soft powdery sort of a feeling with this one, with just a little bit of emollients. So you could just leave it like that. You could also just be very light with your color, so you could just have a little bit of a flush, as it were. But I applied a little bit more color so you can see it. And then we're gonna go in here in just a second. Let me clean my finger off. And we're gonna go in with a little bit of the highlighter to give some more shimmery to it. But anyway, this is gonna transfer and do all that. It's not gonna be, you know, like when it dries down, if you just leave it as the matte, you're not gonna have as much transfer. But I'll show you, like I just put it on, right? I put on a fairly thick coat of it. I think you can see that. So it's not a ton, but it's some. It's really just an excuse for me to drink coffee. But say if you just did a light wash of it, you wouldn't have a lot of transfer, but we're giving some color. Okay, so now I'm gonna put this down so I can actually open it. This is the Vision Flush Glow in Femme. Okay, so I'm gonna apply by finger. And I'll show you, I'll swatch this so you can see it. So this is a kind of a peachy pink duochrome look. I don't know if the camera is going to pick up that exactly, but if I wanted, I could go ahead and have it more. In fact, let's do that. We'll do it before I'll use a different finger. So just a little bit. If you put too much of this, it can get sticky, so just be light in your application. Okay, so that's, you can see the light play off of it. Okay, so I'm gonna apply the other to my okay, so now I have a whole different look for my lips. Let me take this off my finger before I get goop all over the place. With the way things are going today, that could happen. It's not out of the question. Okay, let me put my glasses on and we'll take a look and see what we've got. See, it's just as much of a surprise to me now because I'm like, I can't see it. All right, so let's take a look. Okay, all right, so let me take my hair down. All right, so I feel like what I like about it is just the glow. And let me get in closer, don't panic. Now I don't know if the duochrome of the twin flames can show up on camera in the kind of light that I'm in right now. But it does make a difference if you're sunlight, if you're in low light, and you can test them out, but I am really having fun with those, and I do feel like the duochrome reads in different light. But anyway, so there we are. I think I'm ready for my day. Fingers crossed. I just got a mani-pedi yesterday because I was, again, trying to fight the existential ennui and have prettiness. So usually I do my own nails, but this time I did not. This is an OPI color and I do not remember what the name of it is, so sorry. But anyway, spring. So I'm wearing yellow. I've got my Dnessa Myricks. I'm glowy and sparkly, so I think I'm ready for my day. Hope you're all doing well. If you have existential ennui, try putting on some makeup. Again, you can always wash it off and just maybe it'll help lift and lighten the spirits. So anyway, hope you're all well and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.